Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of On the Flip Side. On the first Monday of every month, we talk about mindset. And every other Monday after that, it's any topic in real estate. My name is Diana Lizarazo, and today's guest speaker is Jacqueline Francis. Now, before we get started, I want to share some exciting news with you. I have a social networking platform for the real estate investing industry. So if you are an investor, if you are a mentor, you are a professional, you want to be a part of this platform. Not only can you showcase the types of properties that you work on, but you also get to showcase what kind of investor you are. You can also even talk about in the properties, you can talk about what kind of problems you encountered, how you solve them. So you can really show people what kind of investor you are that way. You can also set up calendar events and you can interact with the community. So if you are interested, it's free to join, and you just go to realestateinvestorfam.com and have some fun, and let's start getting to know each other. Now back to the show. On the flip side, our guest speakers are here to help you by sharing their experiences on specific real estate topics. So today is mindset. So I'm excited to bring on Jacqueline, and we will get chatting on today's topic, which I think is exciting and important. If I can get her in, let's see how many times it takes. 20, 30, 40. Usually it's like a mission to get people on. I don't know if people have found a better way now to, like Instagram, because my God, it's usually 20 times to get people on this thing. And I don't hear it ringing, so it's weird. Let me accept it. Oh, there we go.
Looks like it was just one. We did it.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Happy Monday, this last week of August. I can't believe we're here.
Happy Monday. Time flies by so fast. And I think this is even like our topic. Basically, like that, the good, the bad, and the ugly on positive thinking. I think it's a great topic because what is September? The start of a new year, you know? New year for businesses, new year for schools, new year's for everything, no?
It is. And to some people, it is like a new year. It's a fresh new start. It's the beginning of like routines again. People get more stable, no more vacations until Christmas. So yeah, this is like a brand new beginning for a lot of people. And we're coming out of the summer mindset. We're coming out of like the relaxation. Hopefully a lot of people got to enjoy the summer, be stress-free, and mentally be ready to now leap into the fall and what the fall brings.
100%. Completely agree. And like that, what we've seen in the last, I would say now 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, is that what we're going to talk about, like that, the good, the bad, and the ugly of positive thinking. And to get to the ugly part, we're seeing lots of bankruptcies
Yeah.
come up. And that's basically where you and I were having a conversation where a lot of those bankruptcies were really coming from that overly positive,
Yeah.
delusional positivity.
Exactly. And there was a name for this. I think it's called toxic positivity, where people don't look at their circumstances. And I'm, as a self-image coach, as a mindset coach, I believe in the power of manifestation. I believe in the laws of the universe. And I believe truly that we can, shift our perspective and see life more on a positive side. With that being said, it doesn't mean that you need to ignore some of the signs and the circumstances that you might be facing. So some people will really think that, oh, if I just think positive, then all I need to do is think positive. And thinking positive is not going to get you to the results that you truly want. It's part of it, it's not all of it.
100%. I actually had investors tell me that. Like a few of them that did go, because that's some of the things, you know, you hear also people that are going bankruptcy and you hear people backlashing and
Yeah,
upset. And of course, you're upset because you've lost money, but not all of them are bad intention,
yeah,
like they're trying to steal your money. It and some of them were. There's some people I spoke, and I remember, and you can kind of see the signs of it too. And one of them would say, for example, you know, oh, I'm positive, so like nothing can go
mhm,
wrong. I feel like you hear that, probably start running. Not that they're a bad person, but they've gone to the delusional side and
yeah,
they're not looking at what are the facts. You know, what happens if something does go
yeah,
wrong? You know, it can go wrong. You can try to be um positive about it for sure. Like you can try, but you gotta hustle and get that work done. Like you don't like because generally that whole thing of negativity comes in from you know, you're getting upset at yourself, you're getting mad at yourself, so you're
yeah,
really stuck in your mind, and that's really
mhm,
thinking of the past, right? Because the problem has passed and now you gotta just work on it.
yeah,
And so that negativity, yes, it's not good to dwell, right? Because you just like put yourself down or put your team down or whatever. That's definitely not good. It's not going to help you in any way. But if you are just like, oh, it'll get resolved. It's okay. Don't worry about it. And you're putting a closing the eyes
yeah,
and you're like, I'm just going to think positively, you know, then that's where those are the telltale signs where there's definitely something wrong. What do you think?
yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, right? Like as I mentioned, it's one thing to think positively, and your example, everything might be okay, and holding that belief that it will. But in the meantime, you can't just sit and do nothing. You can't just sit there and just think that thought and do nothing about it. I think the thought becomes reinforced when we take an action. So you're like, okay, I know everything's going to be okay, but look at the circumstances. Was it your fault? Is there something that you need to clean up? Is there someone that you need to call? Is there, like, maybe you need to go to the bank and see, well, do I need to, refinance a property or my mortgage? Or, like, what action can you take in that moment that will take you one step closer to allowing that thing to feel fine or to be fine? And a lot of it comes from our awareness of the responsibility and the part that we played in a thing.
100% agree. It is, those actions are very important. And which what you're basically saying is if we get stuck in that negativity of like putting ourselves down, let's
Yeah,
say bringing in the fear can also be very bad to stop
yeah,
us and even not solve problems. But if we go into the negativity, what it does is it stops you from paying attention to really finding
yeah,
solutions. So removing that is important because now you have to get into like a solution
yeah.
oriented mindset. And in there, you got to sometimes like pump yourself up and you do need to go to that positivity side and just be like, I can do this, you know, like I
Yeah,
got this, and whatever you need to pump yourself to get it done. But once you get to that level of positivity where you feel better, that is the point where now you start, okay, what are the solutions? Because you feel
yeah,
like things will start clearing up for you. Because when you're in
yeah,
the negativity, you got that
yeah.
cloud and you can't see in front of you at all, right? There's no like,
No,
you're in the cloud and you see nothing there. So you got to remove that cloud, right? But
you do.
you can't go into the cloud of positivity to say, right? Like you got to remove it and then now go into clarity of like, okay, I've removed those negative feelings.
Yeah,
Now is time where I can actually properly focus. I can properly think of solutions and not go into like the delusional positive clouds, you know, like you want to like have that balance, you know?
yeah, because so a few things I want to touch on is when you talk about that, like, yeah, it's so important. We are our own critics as well as our own cheerleader. So when our energy starts to feel low, we're gonna vibrate at a lower frequency. So we're gonna have like the feeling of, and our feelings are the telltale signs, right? They are the indication of how we feel. That's the frequency, that's the energy we're putting out. So if you're saying to someone, oh, I feel kind of sad today. Oh, I feel tired. That's the energy you're in. So that's what you're vibrating at, and that is what you're going to attract to you. So you need to be able to uplift yourself. Say those positive affirmations, bring whatever into your life at that moment to help you shift out of those feelings and bring yourself, like, raise that bar a little bit, right? Raise your energy level, raise your vibration, and shift it. I was told a couple of gifts of shift. That's what I haven't coined it. I heard this phrase from someone and I love it. Finding what your gifts of shift are. So sometimes in that moment, it could be taking a walk, it could be, I don't know, taking a nap, journaling, calling a friend. Just stop what you're doing for a few minutes and be able to shift out of that energy. Sometimes it's standing in front of the mirror and saying a few positive affirmations, right? And then you do that. You shift your state and you're in a better state. And so you're like, okay, what can I do next? Another thing I want to point out is when we talk about that, like, delusion of I'm just going to think positive and everything's going to be okay, like, some people tend to ignore what's happening, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to ignore what's happening. You want to acknowledge it and still feel that you can come out of it strong. You're resilient, the answers will come, and tuning in to your body, tuning into what that may feel like. Maybe doing a bit of a quick meditation, a visualization of how you want the situation to play out. Right? So you still have to be doing something. And I believe that in those moments of clarity, you will get a nudge. You will, like, an idea will come to your mind where you'll be like, okay, you know what? Call so and so. Okay, you know what? Go and check this document to look at this. Something will come up, and then you got to move on that action. Otherwise, you just can't sit on your couch or sit in your bed and be like, I'm just going to think positive, and that's all I need to make my life better.
I'm just gonna go on vacation, spend all my money, and I'll be so hyped up and amazing from that that the problem would just get solved. People really think that way,
Yeah,
like people
yeah,
actually think that, like, oh, because I'm in the zone of positivity, I'll be okay. Let alone you spend more money and you're already liquidating money already as it is, and the problem still hasn't been solved. There's
yeah.
your delusional positivity right there.
Yeah. And another thing that just came to mind that I wanted to mention earlier was that this idea of thinking, oh my gosh, I just had it and now it's gone. It's something that you said and it triggered my mind and now it's like gone.
Well,
Sorry. I
I'll
lost
give
the
the
thought.
story and maybe it will come back. So actually, it's really funny. This morning, actually, I was having a conversation. I have my reading groups for mindset. And it was having the problem with getting yourself out of the situation. So I kind of loved how you're talking about that shift is so
Yeah.
important
The
because
gifts of shift.
the what, sorry?
The gifts of
The
shift.
gift of shift. Yeah, that's really amazing you said that because a very simple example, an everyday example that I think that what I was talking about this morning, and I think like might as well share it here, is like that. You're having a fight with a partner, a team member, whatever. And sometimes some people have that emotional intelligence where they can relax that conversation, bring it down, and then the conversation can be had. But where it really you see that shift, like you said, that if you can't do that, because a lot of us can't, you get stuck in the red and you just have to leave the situation, right? But in the scenarios, we say like you leave the situation, but where you've improved is, for example, you leave the situation, right? Because you're like, we need to take a break. We need to talk about this, for example, tomorrow in a couple hours once we've calmed down. And you go, for example, outside and you're able to enjoy the fresh air. You're
Yeah.
able to look at the trees outside and like enjoy the beauty. You're able to wash those dishes without being angry. When you are not thinking about that problem anymore, you've shifted out. When you're being present coming into presence is something that also helps and is very important to help you get out of it, right? Because that problem, you've had the problem, nothing's being solved because you're going to talk about it later on or whatever. So that should be put aside, and you need to bring yourself into the presence is also a really good thing that helps you because you wash those dishes. If you're like this stupid person is da da da, and oh my god, they're so obnoxious and they don't know, and you're washing those dishes, what are you
Yeah.
doing? You're
Yeah.
just feeding
Yeah.
negativity. You're not even paying attention to what you're doing. So
You're
that's
right.
also a good sign for you to know, like, has that shift happened?
Mm.
Right? Because
Yes.
you need to be able to shift. I mean, you don't have to be able to shift quickly, but that's an indicator where you've been improving, where
Yeah.
you're just like, you're able to make these shifts quickly. And it is important to be able to make those shifts.
Exactly. And it's taking control of your mind, taking control of the thoughts. Because you're right, you're sitting there in the heat of the moment. Maybe they've stomped out, maybe you've got off the phone, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And you're replaying that in your mind. So even in that moment, after, let's say it's an hour later, 3 hours later, it's almost as if you're living that same argument over and over again. So you need to become aware that you're having these thoughts and just be able to like tell yourself, like, I don't need to be thinking about this right now. Let's focus on washing the dishes. Bring a positive or a calming thought to your mind. Oh my gosh. And it is sometimes being in the present, right? Oh my gosh, I don't know, say something that you're grateful for in the moment, right? I love the kitchen. I love my view of, my backyard right now. Like, you've got to find what works for you as long as you're trying. And like you said, it does become easier the more you practice at doing it.
Exactly. I was going to say also don't get discouraged
Yeah.
because you'll have your really good weeks. I've had some really good weeks where I'm like, wow, I'm so amazing at like getting myself back. And then it's like I do a huge drop. And all I am is I remember I was like that. Like when I get to certain points when I have to just affirm out
Yeah.
loud, it's like I've lost control of my mind. And even the affirmations out loud don't work. It's just because like sometimes you just it just no one's perfect, and it's
Yeah.
always going to happen that you're going to have to be able to, and so also just not thinking that, oh, the first time doesn't work, or like even for me that like I'll have some really good weeks and then all of a sudden I'm like dropping and I was like, why did I even like
Yeah.
get into this negativity? Because we're always going to get into it, but
Yeah.
as long as the awareness is there and you're at least trying to continually practice it and do the best that you can. Because I was doing these affirmations, like almost screaming at myself, like trying not to hear the negative thoughts that were going on in my mind. And it ended up not working. And I just kind of, to be honest, I had to give up. And I was just like, okay, whatever. And I think I went to like put on TV. I was like doing other things to try to like get it out. But it took me a
Yeah.
while to get out of that negative mode.
You see, and you're somebody that's in personal development. You read, you study, like you understand this to the T. So for you to even say that, like, and I have moments like that too, where I know what I need to do to shift it, and I do, but sometimes it can take a
Doesn't
lot.
happen.
It can take a little longer. It can take a little bit more fine tuning what I was doing before. That maybe this particular thing just caught me a little bit more, like it stung a little bit more. So sometimes it's going within and asking the questions too, right? Like, why is this triggering me so much? Like, why? Sometimes sit with that question. Why is this triggering me? Why is it triggering me? And if you're not getting an answer right away, come back to take a nap. Go for a
Yeah.
walk. Like, you gotta find something to distract the mind. Otherwise, you can really spiral down with all these different thoughts of why the person did this, why the situation happened. And more often, if it's something that like, we might have done, we're self-blaming. We're like, we put all the blame on ourselves. Oh, how, and then you're thinking of all these possibilities of, oh, I could have done it this way. I could have, it should have, what I could have. You didn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Like,
your
why,
mind needs to
why
know.
be in the past, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but we tend to live there. And the more we live in the past, the more it takes away from us being present. And this is what I want to say earlier. The same mind that created the problem cannot be like the same mind that creates the solution. So you have
100%.
to be able, yeah, so you have to be able to like not focus on the problem in order to focus on the solution. And you mentioned earlier, the more we dwell on the thing, the more we're not going to be able to have the answer come to us. And sometimes it's not even the full answer. It could be just like the next step.
Yeah, just the stepping stone, which is all you need at that time anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, and you'll know what to do. Like you could feel it in your body. Like yesterday, something just told me, no, actually today, something told me like go take a walk at 5 o'clock today. I don't know where that came from. So I'm like, okay, today at 5 o'clock, I just gotta go take a walk. Even yesterday, I was like, it was like 7 o'clock, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna like go shower and like go read or something, and then something just felt like go for a walk, and I'm like, okay. So we know we just have to be able to tune in and not like dismiss that nudge or that like random idea that pops in your head.
Mhm. And I also wanted to talk about, because this positivity happens with a lot of people that are more experienced. Because obviously, the people that are going into bankruptcies, there's some people that are really big. A lot of people have invested in them. And
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to touch on that because you see, like, there's two sides. And I think it's very important, especially if you're a person who wants to grow big, do it. But, we want to make sure of things, right? And it's like if you just want to make sure that you are the fiduciary of other people's money. And so to do
Yeah.
these kind of things is, you want to make sure that, or like, I need to talk first to the people that are actually in it and have gone through the bankruptcies. Because one of the things that really starts playing into it is the ego. You know,
Mm.
they get to certain levels where one, it's like you can't, it's like almost like you can't make a mistake, and then they really get stuck on that, and then they get also stuck on you can't make mistakes, so you have to play everything in a positive, and it's like you can't lose and they can't lose anyone's money,
Yeah.
but those people are the ones that end up losing the most amount of people's money because they close their eyes to situations. And then what happens is instead of, for example, selling those properties at this time because whatever happened, they're trying to put these little band-aids in instead
Yeah.
of just being like, what is the reality of things and not just closing their eyes to positivity and hoping for the best. Like hoping, oh, the interest rates will go down sooner or later, so we'll
Yeah.
just wait. I don't know.
Well, this is what we were talking about too, right? Like people knew that things were changing. Like there was no denying it, but there was still a lot of people that were in delusion. And you said to me, you were one of those people that you would hear the whispers and you're like, something's going to happen. So you knew what to do. You were like, okay, maybe I'm not investing in this anymore. And you started to hold back maybe on things, right? There was a lot of people, 2022, early 2023, that was very optimistic. No, no, this is not going to happen. Interest rates are not going to go up. It'll be fine. I'll throw all my money into this investment, yada, yada, yada. And now look what happened, right? Like we knew something was coming, even like trying to sell a property or putting your property on the market, right? When we were even looking to buy, there were still a lot of owners that had these ridiculously high like prices for their properties,
Yeah,
right? Because
100%.
they were like, no, no, I'm going to get what I want for it. And there's nothing wrong with like sticking to your number, but you have to be realistic about what market that you're buying in, the interest rate economy at that time, and the fact that, you know what, like look at some of the comps. You may not be getting 1.5 for your building. You might be getting 1.3. So stop asking for 1.8, right?
Yeah.
Because
And people at that time we're getting stuck on, but this
yeah,
person sold it for 1.5, 1.6.
yes,
And it's like
yes,
literally
yes.
1 month will make a difference, you know?
Difference, huge difference. Yes, absolutely. And 1 month did make a huge difference. And coming back to that, like, we did some investments with some investors as well, and they were short-term investments, and we were like, okay, we're gonna get our money back in 6 months. But at the time, like, were we greedy? Yeah, maybe we wanted 14% interest on our money and said, sure, we're gonna go back and reinvest the money instead of saying, hey, you know what? Let me just pull it out and let me put it into something like one of our renovations or whatever it was. But we're like, hey, we're going to put this money back into these people's project or whatever it is because we want the return. Like, who doesn't want the return, right?
Mhm.
And things changed,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Things
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah.
The market
I
shifted
would
very
say that's
quickly.
not being greedy. That's being savvy investor, but the problem is like let's say on their side, or it's making sure that kind of what you're saying, right? Like where's your mindset on both sides? Making sure, is economy making sense for it? I mean, some people also invested before things went down and you did think things were okay. And then they went, but it's also like both sides of mindset and then just checking up on them. Because one of the things that I hear people say that when you were investing with them, they would say things like, "Oh, interest rates increasing aren't going to make a difference." I'm just like, I'm sorry. I'm an engineer. Math is my thing. I'm like, what do you mean interest rates are not going to increasing or not going to affect the economy? You know, like for me, that was just like that's a huge red flag right there when you say that changes in the market will not make changes in the market. You know.
And sometimes people say things so that way they can ease their fear. So they have to tell themselves something, right? And when we don't take responsibility for our actions, it's very easy to then say, like, blanket it with like this picture. Oh no, everything's going to be okay. Oh no, this and that. Because you're telling yourself something to ease the fear or the pain that you're going to experience, right?
Mhm.
And you're not taking responsibility. Like you're not like
Yeah.
becoming clear is so important. I think whether it comes to business, your personal life, getting clear on what you want and what the outcome is. And then
Mhm.
step by step, let the pieces fall into place because
Mhm.
you're the one that's going to be taking the action. You can't sit back and just, like we said, come back to the toxic positivity. Just think that everything will be okay. You can think it 100%, cultivate that belief, but you have to back it up with action.
Mhm. So, a question actually for you. I'm curious. I'm even trying to think about formulating in my mind. What kind of questions would you ask those bigger investors? Because like that, sometimes they go into positivity. One, I mean, like I feel like that's just business. Everyone has to go to business, but sometimes they start believing their own stuff too. Like, because it's fine if you're front facing, trying to put the positive spin, but if behind, because that's what bankruptcy is, right? If from behind that positivity, like that toxic positivity is there, then there's also obviously an issue because they're just blinders are fully on, right? But if you're obviously trying to sell the, be positive, but in the back you're finding the solutions to the problems, then that's that's a different story. And again, finding those solutions in the sense of clarity, right? Because I'm sure these people that were going into bankruptcies before were trying to find solutions, but I think they were finding solutions to make this is a big important one. When you're trying to find solutions to make yourself good instead of helping your customers,
Mhm.
your investors, that's also a big problem. Is like when you're if you are an investor and you catch yourself in that mode of are you actually finding a solution for your investors or you're finding a solution for yourself to look good? Is that
Mm.
like that's also because I think people that go into bankruptcy is they're worried about their image. They're worried
Of
about the
course,
view of
the
themselves.
reputation. Yeah, of course, 100%, right? Because now you have a reputation on the line. You've
Mhm.
built this company up, you've hyped it up, people know that you're good at this, you're good at that, and then things start falling apart. In the background, they're like people that have grown really fast in the last 2 years. You have a team of people. You have a team that's helping you, like, because you're the front facing. You're front facing the business, right? You have other people in the background. But does it become a moral issue then when you know you're starting to drown and now you're borrowing money to pay debt when your assets do not cover what you're borrowing anymore?
Yeah.
At what point do you start to say, okay, I've got to take control of this. I'm not going to accept any more money, or I'm not going to dump everything that I have into this one project or give it away to private lending. Like, when then does it become like a moral issue when you're like, and like you said, it becomes like it's not about serving the people anymore. It becomes your own problem. You need to save yourself because you're only thinking about yourself rather than saving the people that you borrowed the money from or that you invested with, or whatever that situation is, right?
100%. Yeah. And I think when you go into that like toxic positivity or negativity, I think both of them applies. I've generally heard this on the negative side, but I think this also applies to toxic positivity. That when you go to those sides, you become a very much more selfish person, right? And I feel like I'll explain it on the negative side because I've heard it more on the negative side. Is that if you're sad or depressed, what are you thinking? Oh, what was me? I
Yeah.
am so bad at this. That's selfish. You're just thinking about you. One of the things they tell you, and it's a tip is if you want to get out of that selfish mode is start doing things for others, right? Because now you're thinking of someone else. So I
Yeah.
think that very much applies to this world too. right? If you're in that toxic positive, and that toxic positivity would be like, I am so amazing, nothing can go wrong with me. When you hear that kind of story, like nothing can go wrong with me, they're in toxic
Yeah, and that
positivity.
is
They're in that delusional
delusional.
positivity, right?
Yeah, like the life, like the law of rhythm. Life is going to go, life goes in a rhythm. It's going to go up, it's going to go down. So thinking that nothing can happen to you, it's a little bit on the delusional side because you have to
Mhm.
become aware that anything can happen. So you have to be able to understand that when things do happen, how are you going to respond? Are you going to react and go crazy? And this comes back to the respond versus react, right? Are you
Mhm.
self-aware? Are you taking responsibility for your actions? Can you, when something arises, know that it's not you? Know that that situation was there for you to grow, for you to learn from, and for you to move forward with. But when you put it back on you, why is this happening to me? Oh my gosh. And I used to think like that. I used to think very selfishly, like, poor me, why me? Why is this happening? And then that shifted because it didn't become about me anymore. It's not about me. It wasn't to me. It was for me. So I had to clear, like, let the smoke clear to see the message that was coming through the situation, through the person, through the circumstance. And there's always a lesson every single time, right?
Yeah. And actually, that's a good point that you made, right? Because I even have an example of something like that happening with me that I wanted to share of that importance of like once you start going outside, you, like you said, you'll find those solutions. So I remember I was lending to a guy and I was on first mortgage. I had no worries about anything happening because if the economy went down, like I was
Feel
still
like,
fine. And I had more than enough equity on it, so I was not in fear of any kind. But there were delays on the project, and it was in the 2022 time frame. I think it was in that time frame, yeah. So when things were going up and down, and again, I had gone, and the reason why I was so confident was obviously because like that, because I saw things happening. My even loan to value, I had like readjusted all my numbers, so I was very comfortable with what I was investing in. But then there came a time where again I had to make the initial conversation because they didn't come to me. But again, I come with I always want to make sure like everything's a win-win. So I went to ask them, what's going on with your project? Like there's delays, and I kind of wanted to tell them like, I also actively work on projects too. So I'm like, you have problems, I can provide solutions and help you out. And and I was able to help him
oh,
speed up the project because he probably would have been another 6 months, another 6 months delay. Ended up shortening up to, I think it was like within a month or two, he managed to get it
oh,
from the advice that I gave him. Now, again, in my perspective, he should have been, if not saying things to me, because yes, I'm the lender, maybe you feel uncomfortable, but are you talking to others outside you? Or are you just stressed and again thinking, I?
yeah.
It's like all my problems, all my things. And I feel like this is like, well, yeah, everyone does this, right? Like,
It's an
it's my
ego
problem. I
thing.
have to deal with it.
Yes,
No,
yeah. It's
it is
also,
your problem,
yeah,
but everyone can help
I
you.
know. And this is what I find too with like coaching clients, right? And I was brought up this way. A lot of people I talk to are brought up this way. We don't ask for help, and we think, especially women too, feel that they can manage and deal with everything all by themselves.
Yeah.
And what are we then? What's the frequency and energy we're putting out when we do that? That we do not want more, that we are not open to receive. And so good for that person for accepting the help because a lot of times people will be like, oh no, I'm fine, I'm good, everything is good. And they're masking instead of like they're dying inside and they're like, yes, I could freaking use your help. I need your help. But the ego is so strong, it will talk us out of things like that. Or
Yeah.
it's part of our programming or our culture to be like, you don't need to ask for help. You can do it all on your own. But this world is not that. Like, we are all energy. We are here to support and help each other rise and lift, right?
Mhm.
One thing that stood out to me on my journey, somebody had said to me, when you kind of like elevate to the next level of your life, always send the elevator back down. And I realize how important being of service is. This life isn't meant to be lived for myself. It's for me to figure out what I'm here to do and help other people elevate.
100%. And it's just a good way to get out of those clouds, like I say, of
Yeah.
the toxic positivity and the toxic negativity.
Yeah.
Puts you kind of like more in a neutral space because
Yes.
you're not in that I mode. It's all about me because you realize it doesn't really help you, to be honest. And like that, like it pulls you out of your ego because your ego is I, right? Because your
Yes,
ego is
it is.
like,
It
I
is.
need to survive. I need to make sure I'm good. I
Yes.
am this. I am that.
Yeah.
It's there to keep you safe, but we've gone into a world where that kind of also goes. That again goes into a delusional, crazy
It does. It
feel
can
that
work
you don't
against
control
us,
it.
right? Because when you're constantly thinking like, oh, why did this person do this to me? They're negative, they're bad. Why did the situation happen to me? You're really blocking answers and solutions. You're blocking the ability to just let it go. So that way you can free your body, you can free your energy up for new things to come in, for new space to come in, right? And going back to this idea of neutrality. So I've learned to become very neutral to situations, right? Because when you're neutral, like everything in this world that happens for you, we give a meaning to. So if I did, let's say I didn't want to do this live with you today, and I never messaged you about it, all of a sudden you're going to give it a meaning. You're going to be like, oh, maybe she doesn't like me, maybe this, maybe that. Like we give things meaning because everything is meaningless except for the meaning that we give it. So when we become neutral to a situation or a circumstance, we do not get affected by it. It doesn't, like nobody hurts our feelings except for us, right?
And I love that example. And even just to add a little bit more to that is like that instead of like dwelling in your mind of this person doesn't like me or who knows, saying whatever crazy stories in your mind, you just
Yeah,
let it go
yeah,
because what is gonna matter? And then if you have another chat with them. Oh, hey, what happened? Let them tell you. Oh, I was busy and I had to go to a thing and I didn't get a chance. And then you're like,
yeah,
imagine if you didn't have to do all that story you built up in your
yeah.
head and you're just like, oh, that was the issue. Oh my God, everything's good,
Right?
Like you didn't even have to put yourself into that turmoil. And that's like you're saying, that neutral space, right? It's like, don't get caught up in your mind making up all these stories in your head
Story.
to find out it has nothing to do with what you said.
And that's the power of the mind. It is going to search like your reticular activating system, right? If you give it an idea, it's going to search to prove that idea is true for you. So when you're like, oh, why did this happen to me? It's going to feed that, right? So it's going to be like, oh, because of this, oh, because of this, because it's searching for all the things that you're telling it to look for. So instead of telling it to look for negative things, start to help it, like redirect it. And this is where we need to use the gifts of shift to be able to redirect our thoughts and our mind, our energy, our body in alignment with what it is that we truly want, right? Because I don't believe that like we're here to be sad all the time, to believe and think that life is hard, to live
Think we're
below
not
our means.
worthy of things, of
Yeah,
abundance, of whatever. Yeah.
exactly. Like our soul, and I've said this before, our soul is here to expand and to grow. And in order to do that, like, if we're like spirit and our souls are in this human body, we're going to have the human experience of life. We're going to have to know what it's like to be sad, like to be upset, and all those things. But our soul is really here to be like, how do you navigate that? How do you navigate not, holding on to grudges? How do you navigate, when you don't get the job? It's not because of you, but these are all lessons that throughout all of our lives and all of our paths, we each have to figure out. Some people never figure it out, and that's okay. Maybe that was their karma not to figure it out. But for the people that do become aware, and awareness, you know, only grows. It expands and it keeps like growing. And the more aware you become, the more you can shift and change your life.
Hmm. Completely agree. I love this conversation. It's so amazing. I feel like we always have such fun conversations. But
So
to
good.
finish it off, what kind of, let's give them a summary or some tips of just like how to end this, or even just to help people to get out of that toxic positivity or even that toxic negativity, because it really it
Yeah.
is, we want to kind of be in a neutral space. We don't want to be in delusional land.
Yeah. And
We
and
do want to give people.
I would first start off by like, becoming aware. Awareness is huge, right? So if you can start to become aware of the things that you're thinking on a daily basis, the things that you're speaking of, because our words are so powerful, right? What are you saying to your friend? What are you saying to yourself? Like even the first thought in the morning, start to see what that is. And once you're like, oh, why am I thinking that? Question it, right?
Mhm.
Question it. Why am I thinking that? And then you can even go a step further and be like, well, should I be thinking this? Where did this thought come from? Is it my thought to think? Why do I think that, my day's not going to go well? Because the minute you cultivate that thought, that belief, well, you're pretty much telling yourself, like, it's the intention of your day going that way. So, what do you want, right? And if people are not willing to do that inner work and that inner reflection and the questioning, well, then it's going to be hard for you to like change anything in your life. And once you do get to that point where you do want to change and you do start to recognize some of those thoughts, learn understanding about the gifts of shift. When you're upset about something or somebody triggers you, like give yourself a bit of space for a moment and sit with yourself, even if it's for like 5 minutes. Even if you get cut off on the road and you get really triggered, it's like breathe. Why did that person just piss me off? Why am I getting so upset that I had to like scream at them or honk my horn vigorously at them? We don't know if someone else is having a bad day, but we put all of like our feelings, like it's like we hurt our own feelings through somebody else's actions without
Mhm.
being like, hey, let me just let it go. This is where the neutrality comes into play. And don't worry about like, being great at shifting your energy or becoming neutral to things. Like it's a skill. You will learn it, you'll fall back down, you'll pick back up, and so it goes. The juggle of life kind of thing, right? But
Mhm.
as long as you're becoming aware of these little things day to day, and you do that consistently, it's going to make a huge impact in 3 months, in 6 months, in 1 month, even. So
Yes.
I'm going to start there.
I love it. Those are amazing tips. And basically, I feel like to sum up what you said is just be curious about yourself, you know?
That's a
It's
great
so
way to
much
put it.
fun to be curious about yourself and realize like actually how little you know about yourself and how much you want to learn about
Yeah.
yourself, because your life becomes so
Yeah.
much more exciting, so much more fun when you're
Yeah.
actually realizing the person who you really are and who you didn't realize you knew,
Yeah.
that there was so much about yourself that you didn't know.
Yeah. And this lady, Nisha, she is a self-love and confidence coach, and she will like help you. And I've learned this too, like learning to love yourself, learning to give yourself grace, right? And learning to understand that like, it is a self journey. And it starts with you because no one else can really like make you think anything you don't want to think. It all like you've got to claim your power always and be and know that like you are the one in control, not other things outside of you.
100%. I love it. If you guys love what you heard from Jacqueline and you want to be up and to see what she's up to these days, she will be tagged on here. She's also has her reframe profile. So if you want to even learn more about Jacqueline, you can also go on there too. And if you want to learn more about me or follow me, or see what I'm up to, same thing. I'll be tagged. I'm in here, and you can also check me out in Refam. Both our links will be there, so you can learn a lot more about us and just stay on track of what we're up to. Jacqueline, thank you so much for coming on. It's always so much fun to chat with you.
Amazing. Thank you for having me and have a great week ahead. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Jacqueline. Bye, everyone. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.